Thailand and Cambodia had a short war. Donald Trump made a couple of phone calls, but they haven't resolved anything. 1.5 to 2 million Ukrainian soldiers, because this war now, I mean, at least give him credit for being the only diplomat that's saying the truth. If you want a sovereign Lebanon, you need a Lebanese army capable of defending Lebanon. All the people that recognized a Palestinian state today had a caveat that Hamas cannot be part of the government of Palestine, which means they're not recognizing a Palestinian state. They're recognizing live a quality life while ensuring that enough money is set aside for Uncle Sam. That money you're setting aside is going to a bunch of freeloaders. Too many times in the United States, I've seen the streets filled up for a day with protesters, and then the next day they're all gone. And if you're the government, that's not pressure at all. You just write out. But moreover, Iran had said it will not tolerate a Zangezur corridor that would, in effect, negotiated some deal where the United States will take control of 46 kilometers of highway. And
well, gosh, let's go through them. First of all, the Congo. He's talking about a conflict that's taking place in eastern Congo that involves not just the Congolese forces in Rwanda, but in others as well. It's a very complicated situation involving ethnicities, natural resources, etc. The Congolese leadership said if Trump could come in and help facilitate an end to the conflict, they'd be willing to open up their rare earth mineral deposits for development by the United States. So Donald Trump sent I think it was a 3-person team in to begin the negotiations. They had to flee for their lives because they went in there. They had no clue what they were doing. And they irritated people. And next thing you know, they were marked for death and they had to run. That's how Donald Trump solved that conflict, which means he didn't solve it at all, but he's going to take credit for it. Armenia and Azerbaijan. The interesting thing is that this conflict was largely resolved primarily through the European Union intervention and Russia. I mean, Russia, of course, never gets the credit that Russia deserves, but the Russians played a significant role in bringing it into this conflict. But there was an outstanding issue, the Zangezur corridor, which is something that Turkey and Azerbaijan were insisting on, which required connecting the Azerbaijan exclave of Nakhchivan. I think I'm saying that correctly, which is separating from Azerbaijan, the main part, by Armenia and Iran on the bottom. But Nakhchivan borders Turkey. And so the idea is that Turkey would get connectivity through Nakhchivan, through the Zangezur corridor to Azerbaijan, and then onwards into Central Asia. And this is part of the big Turkish concept of sort of reinvigorating their post-Ottoman dreams. But there were problems. But one, Armenia wasn't too thrilled about giving up, a slice of its territory, especially after the very politically difficult reality of having to stand by while Azerbaijan ethnically cleansed the Nagorno-Karabakh territories, which had traditionally been populated by Armenians over the course of several centuries. But moreover, Iran had said it will not tolerate a Zangezur corridor that would in effect create a barrier between Iran and Armenia. So Trump sent in, I guess, Tom Barak, who is the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, but he's also somehow the special envoy to Lebanon and Syria, and now the special envoy for Armenia and Azerbaijan. And Barak apparently negotiated some deal where the United States will take control of 46 kilometers of highway and patrol it with not American troops, but American contractors, mercenaries, so to speak, and that this constitutes a peace deal. The problem is nobody's agreed to this. It's not going to happen. And so it's fake, like everything this man does. Thailand and Cambodia had a short war. Donald Trump made a couple of phone calls, but they haven't resolved anything. The conflict is being dealt with. It's a lot. It's about a lot more than simply having troops shoot each other. It's the position of temples, religious aspects, and then there's a history of personal relationships and animosity that comes from perceptions of betrayal that Donald Trump doesn't understand. I can guarantee you he doesn't know the names of the people involved or the complexities of the relationships. He just made a phone call, and because they stopped shooting each other, went, "I made peace." The same thing with India and Pakistan. He claims his phone call has resulted in amazing peace. It hasn't resulted in anything. He has not stopped a single conflict. That's the reality. Oh, the best one, of course, is Iran and Israel. Donald Trump is a peacemaker there.
He bombed Iran, and he worked hand in glove with the Israelis to launch a surprise attack against Iran. And now he's trying to take credit as being a great peacemaker because Israel called him up and said, we have to have a ceasefire because we're getting pounded. There's nothing, there's no peacemaker about it. The one big chance he had to make a real difference in the world was Ukraine and Russia. Yeah. And he just punted. And all he's done there, I'm giving away the conclusion of my paper, but all he's done there is guarantee the death of the Ukrainian nation and probably the death of an additional 1.5 to 2 million Ukrainian soldiers, because this war now will not end until Russia physically destroys Ukraine. There is no longer an off-ramp. There is no peace deal to be had, which means Russia will fight until the very end. And Russia's winning, no matter what Zelensky whispers into Donald Trump's ears. Zelensky's words can't change reality.
That's right. And we tried to warn people about this, right? Like there were multiple opportunities there for peace, but I think it's definitely too late now. You mentioned Lebanon. I want to show people this. I don't know if everybody is aware of this. This happened recently. Did you guys know that Lebanon said that 4 U.S. citizens were killed, including 3 children, in an Israeli drone strike? And nobody's talking about it. Like literally like everything, all the news that you've heard in the past couple of days, Donald Trump's not talking about this. His administration is not talking about this. Like people are acting like this just didn't happen. Again, those are Americans that were killed. Now, imagine if this had been, this is the crazy part. Imagine if it was 4 Israelis that were killed. You see what I mean? It's like our government doesn't even want to have even more compassion for Americans who were killed than they do when you compare to Israelis that are killed. Like, this is crazy that nobody is screaming this from the rooftops right now. And that leads me to this part here. And Orion Grimm shared this. The U.S. is arming the Lebanese military. So listen to what this is. Tom Barak. Listen to what he says here. Yep. Look, first of all, I'm not a big fan of Don Barak. Not at all. But he just said what is the truth. I mean, at least give him credit for being the only diplomat that's saying the truth. It may be unpleasant for us to hear, but this has been America's policy vis Lebanon since the 1,980 seconds. Recall when the American Marines landed in Lebanon back in the 1,980 seconds to help get the PLO out of Beirut and then later on to facilitate a ceasefire. The big problem was that the United States treated the Lebanese army as just another militia as opposed to, an army capable of actually accomplishing a national unifying mission. And that got us in trouble because we were seen as just backing another militia. We don't want the Lebanese army to be able to confront Israel. Let's also look at this reality. Israel invaded and occupied southern Lebanon in 1982. It wasn't the Lebanese army that evicted Israel. It was Hezbollah. Hezbollah beat Israel people don't seem to recall that, but it was Israel that retreated from southern Lebanon in 2000. Wasn't the Lebanese army that made them retreat? If you want a sovereign Lebanon, you need a Lebanese army capable of defending Lebanon. The reason why Hezbollah exists is because the Lebanese army can't defend Lebanon from an Israeli invader and occupier. That's the whole purpose of the Hezbollah resistance movement, and it's what gives it credibility. And Barak's statement doesn't do the Lebanese government any favors at all, because it simply proves Hezbollah's point that the United States wants Lebanon to be permanently subordinated to Israel and never be able to stand up and challenge Israel's violation of Lebanese sovereignty. The only military force in Lebanon capable of standing up to Israel is Hezbollah. And yet, that's the force that the United States wants to see be disarmed. Not because we care about Lebanon, but we care about Israel. And we care about Israel more than we care about American citizens. Let this be a lesson to you. I mean, let's just, I hate playing the racial card. I really do. I despise myself when I do it. But I'm just going to be as honest as the day is long. You know why we're not mourning them? Because they're Arabs. They're not real Americans. They're Arabs. They call themselves Americans, but they're in Lebanon. They're down there in that Hezbollah country. And, therefore, they're not really Americans now, are they? And that's how our government treats them. But had they been pure Israeli Americans of the purest sort, my God, we'd be dropping nuclear. We wouldn't. But we'd be threatening everything to hold those accountable who dare, spill the blood of the pure Americans. But they're only pure because they're Israelis. These Arabs, they're not treated as Americans. And this goes across even non-Arab. Rachel Corrie, that wonderful girl that got run over by an Israeli bulldozer, murdered. She's not real because she stood up against the Israelis, and therefore she's not a real American. She can't be a real American. There's Americans on this flotilla making their way to Gaza right now that's apparently being attacked by Israeli drones as we speak. Look, no, we don't care about American lives. We only care about, select American lives. Look, we could just go on and on and on and on and on. I don't need to tell you about the inequities of how we value life here in America. But even Ronald Reagan picked up the phone and told Israel, stop bombing Lebanon. You're losing support. Well, let's see who I think it was, Barak again, who said, he basically said, for Israel, there are no longer any red lines, blue lines, green lines, white lines. There are no lines. Israel will do whatever Israel wants to do regardless. Why? Because Israel has now come face to face with the reality that the entire world views Israel as a pariah, and therefore Israel is not out to impress anybody. Israel doesn't care about losing support. Netanyahu has recently come out and said that Israel must acknowledge that it has lost the world and that Israel must become self-sufficient totally economically and not rely on anybody. Well, that's a joke because when he says self-sufficient, what he means is that he has to keep the umbilical cord attached to the United States so he can continue to suck out the lifeblood of America. Israel is a parasite. Literally a parasite attached to the American host, and we have to recognize it as such. So I don't know if everybody remembers, I covered this a while back, that there were 50 ships this time around that set sail to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. And so my biggest thing was like, okay, well, how are they going to stop like all 50 of those ships or whatever? But yeah, it is earlier news that was reported that Israel is implementing drone strikes on those flotilla ships. They also there's Americans on those ships as well. And again, that's another thing. You don't really hear corporate media talking about this much. I think the one time they did was when the first time Greta set sail on the Malene. But since then, I don't really hear anything about it. You would think 50 ships, obviously, is a big deal, but they're just pretending like this isn't happening. Like, I cannot stress this enough, you guys. Israel is drone attacking American citizens on international waters, and nobody's saying anything about it. Well, you are. Thank you. And a few others are. But you're right. I think now we get into a different aspect of Phil philosophy here. I got chewed out a while ago because I used the term alternative media when I described myself and you and others. And I was told, if we allow ourselves to be defined as alternative media, we are literally subordinating ourselves to what we call the mainstream media. But the fact of the matter is, the mainstream media is no longer mainstream. We can call them corporate media, but they're not mainstream. And I think the term that you and I have to start embracing along with others is legitimate media, legitimate independent media. We're not alternative. We are legitimate and we are independent and reporting the facts. And the other thing I'd like to point out is I don't know what kind of audience you draw in, but I think it's respectable, and I think that your numbers at the end of the day, when you finally compile, your views are competitive to the corporate media numbers, especially certain shows. We actually do a lot better than we give ourselves credit. We are reaching a lot of people, and we are having an impact to you because our audience isn't a bunch of exhausted, American workers who have come home from work too tired to think, and they sit down in their overstuffed chair, automatically click on the legacy media that's pre-programmed into their TV to watch 30 minutes of drill coming from some, overcoiffed, talking head. They don't think, they just absorb. The people that come to you, to me, and to others, these are thinking people. We may not always agree with what they think, but they're thinking people who have made a decision to find this program and watch this program, which means that this audience is far more active and does what we hope an active audience would do, which is to become politically active, to get out there and do things. So the hell with corporate media. I'm tired of giving them credence. I don't care about them anymore. What I care about is what we are doing, and we are doing the right thing. We are on the right side of history, and we are having a far greater impact on the public than mainstream media, corporate media does. Tragically, it's pure theater. Mostly say, I think Canada, Australia, France, Great Britain, and Spain, I believe. And there might be some others, Netherlands maybe, perhaps, I'm not sure, have recognized a Palestinian state. And they define the Palestinian state based upon the 1,967 borders. Now, if you look at the situation today in Israel/occupied Palestine, demographically, the 1,967 borders don't exist anymore. And one of the reasons is because of Israel's unconstrained, settlement policy. So my question to M. Cranone is, having recognized the 1,967 borders, what are you going to do to achieve this reality? You can't proclaim a state that literally doesn't exist. Are you going to advocate for the dismantlement of the settlements? What are you doing to put teeth into that policy? What are you doing to put pressure on the Israelis? And here's the other big question. When you speak of a Palestinian state, we now have to, incorporate concepts that are contained in the Charter of the United Nations. Macron, that body you're speaking to when you're at the General Assembly, And these notions speak of self-determination. If there was an election in Palestine today, Hamas would win this election hands down. The Palestinian Authority under Abbas would not. They are widely despised by Palestinians as little more than an extension of the Israeli government, enforcers of Israeli occupation policies. And yet all the people that recognized a Palestinian state today had a caveat that Hamas cannot be part of the government of Pal, which means they're not recognizing a Palestinian state. They're recognizing this artificial entity they've constructed in their own head is so far removed from reality as to be a joke. So, this is the problem. Yes, I imagine that there'll be some Palestinians who feel good about this, but really why? The fact is there won't be a Palestinian state, and there will never be a Palestinian state as long as the state of Israel exists in its current manifestation. Israel has said they will not tolerate this, and this is a widely embraced posture on the part of all Israelis. Yes, there are some who support this, but the fact of the matter is the Israeli government and the vast majority of Israelis will not support a Palestinian state, which means in order to be a Palestinian state, the primary impediment to having a Palestinian state must be eliminated. And that impediment is Israel. And so now, who is going to eliminate Israel? And the fact is, there's only two powers capable of eliminating Israel. One is Hamas, which is killing Israeli soldiers in prodigious amounts every day in Gaza, occupied Gaza. And two is Israel itself. And it's ultimately Israel that will kill Israel itself. Israel is isolating itself politically and destroying itself economically. The fact that Netanyahu has admitted that Israel must now be so-called, self-sustaining means that he is a prisoner to America. And what we're seeing in America today is a shift in public opinion about Israel, about America's relationship with Israel, especially about Americans' continuous underwriting of Israel with American taxpayer dollars. You know, all those West Bank settlers that we talked about earlier, do you know that they all have free health care? They all have free education. They don't work. They have free subsidies. You know who pays this 100%? The American taxpayer. So all you Americans out there that are struggling with, health bills and paying your school tax and trying to, live a quality life while ensuring that enough money is set aside for Uncle Sam, that money you're setting aside is going to a bunch of freeloaders from Brooklyn who went to Israel and stole land and now sit on that land and demand that you pay every aspect of their continued survival, including their pensions. All right? So they're doing no work, and yet you're going to pay for their pensions? I think it's time Americans begin to wake up, and they are waking up, and this is turning the table. And when you reach that critical point where Americans have turned their back on Israel, that umbilical cord will be cut, and that's when Israel dies. That's how Israel dies, because America will walk away. I don't know where you are in the Charlie Kirk thing, and I don't want to get too deep into that if that's not your thing. It's not my thing, but I will say that, there is evidence that Charlie Kirk himself was starting to question aspects of America's relationship with Israel. And when you have a Christian fundamentalist conservative of that stature starting to question, that's extraordinarily problematic for Israel. This is why Netanyahu had to come out and start screaming at the top of the line, I didn't kill him, we didn't kill him. Not because there's any evidence he did, but he recognizes that the narrative, Israel is losing control of the narrative, and that it is having a fundamental impact on a critical aspect of the American demographic. These Christian Zionist, Christian fundamentalists who believe in Israel needing to exist in order to facilitate the rapture. I'm all on board. Look, I believe in the power of the people. I mean, it doesn't always manifest itself properly, and sometimes I doubt the sustainability of these efforts. Meaning it's too many times in the United States I've seen the streets filled up for a day with protesters, and then the next day they're all gone. And if you're the government, that's not pressure at all. You just write out that day. The sustainability of this, I think the Italians hopefully are different, and this will be sustainable. I like the idea of the dock workers because that brings about immediate economic pain that has to be addressed. We've had American dock workers pull you strikes in the past, and you feel it almost immediately. So I'm for that. I'm also, look, I believe there's nothing wrong with an American voting their pocketbook. I mean, we do it every day, whether we agree to or not. I mean, I buy a certain brand of soda, and I don't buy another brand of soda because I like the one brand, I don't like the other. But yes, there's political, we know that there's a political price to be paid for calling for a boycott, divestment, and what's the sanctioning of BDS? Isn't that it? BDS of a look at me social activist in the making. But when you announce it, you then can get the target put on you. What I'm here to say to everybody is, don't announce it. Just do it. Just do it. And enough of us just do it. They'll know. You see this right now. You have, I forget what it was. This was a Israeli chef, I think, who's gone out there and he's being boycotted, and there's no, internet thing. People are just saying, you served in the IDF. We're not eating, and he's going out of business. And I would encourage every American to do your research. And if you find a business that is Israeli owned, Israeli affiliate, you don't have to put yourself at risk. Just don't buy from them. And if enough of us do this, their business will collapse. And eventually it becomes self-evident why it's happening. And we can impact Israel this way. We really can. And we're getting to the point right now where we're reaching critical mass, meaning where there's enough Americans that don't need to be asked to boycott. They're just doing it. They're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And there we go. Safe.